Right, left, right. Keep going. Don't let him win. Make it out alive. Oh, God! Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. Oh, my God. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. A door. Whoa! Oh, my God. A fire. I haven't seen light in months. Who are you?
Welcome. Sit by my fire.
I hate to ask, but I'm waving my hand in front of your face and you aren't reacting even one bit. Are you...
Blind? Yes, I'm afraid so. Here, share some of this meaty stew with me.
This is the first meal I've had in days. I've been stuck in this infernal dungeon since...
Oh, it's okay. We're all victims of him.
How can I ever repay you for your kindness?
Do you know that out there, up in the real world, it's Halloween? The spookiest time of year. Goblins, ghouls, and name-brand superheroes prowl the streets. Halloween is my favorite holiday. I even have my favorite Halloween story right here. But alas, my blind eyes cannot see. Do you think you could read it to me?
Sure. What's it about?
This story is about a maze and the young tot who becomes trapped in it.
The Halloween Maze. There it was, the house at the end of the street. Dark and dilapidated like a sick frog, the two-story terror home loomed over the cul-de-sac. Corpus Christensen, plastic ghoul mask resting atop his head so he didn't have to peer through the sharp little eye holes, couldn't tear his eyes away from it, nor from the horrific nightmare that dominated the front yard. Yards upon yards of sheets, styrofoam gravestones, plastic skulls, fog machines galore. A Halloween maze. It hadn't been there yesterday, October 30th, but it was suddenly there this morning, October 31st. To most other kids, this seemed obvious. Who sets up a Halloween maze before Halloween? To Corpus, it was eerie. Its owner, Mr. Ghoulberg, was a local legend. Halloween had been the man's favorite holiday, though favorite might be a bit of a misnomer. Obsession seemed more accurate. The man would dress up starting as soon as the clock rang 12:01 on October 1st, on the dot, every year, and spring from the alcoves and alleys in their small town to frighten local children. He lived to dress up and scare them. Nowhere was safe, not even school. And even though he'd been barred from the educational property long ago, he always found a way in. He was so infamous, so stubborn, so insane, that one day last October, the parents of Autumn Hills, Vermont decided they'd had enough. Armed with torches and pitchforks, the families gathered around the house at the end of the street. Their angry chants of, "No more scares! No more scares!" echoing into the crisp night like a swarm of aggravated ravens. No one knew who threw the first torch. Deputy Sheriffson threw the second, Miss Homemakerson threw the third. Then it was a cavalcade of fire, torches lighting up the midnight sky like fireworks on a name-brand patriotic day. The house burned. Corpus was there, dragged by his burly father who stunk of peach schnapps, scared too many times by Ghoulberg to remain sober. He saw the building go up like tinder. He heard the cracks and the pops and something more distant like a scream before part of the roof collapsed. The fire department was quick, but they weren't quick enough. Of Mr. Ghoulberg, nothing was ever found, not even his bones. He was never heard from again, at least until the maze appeared. The sheets covered Mr. Goulberg's front yard, their corners clipped to poles shoved into the rocky New England earth so that they billowed in and out like sails in the cool northeastern breeze. Mr. Goulberg had been gone nigh unto a year now, so who built this maze? And what was it for? Everyone was talking about it at school, fifth graders daring each other to enter its haunted embrace. By the end of the day, Corpus had been assured damn near every kid at Mapleview Elementary was going to pay the maze a visit. Spike had told him as much. "You gonna go in the maze, you friggin' spleen?" Spike snarled at him in the pickup line. "Everyone else is doing it. If you don't, then everyone will know about you. I've known all along. You're a wimpy baby spleen." Such taunts couldn't go unanswered. So like the big, tough non-spleen he was trying to be, Corpus responded to Spike with 4 simple words. "Oh, I'll be there." Now, Corpus and his best friends, Prancy Finkelbaum and Jumpin' Jack Estevez, were dressed in 3 undead monstrosities, standing 4 houses down from the maze, and there was no one around. The street was silent. Some might even hazard to say, dead. Prancy bit her lower lip. Jack hopped lightly from one foot to the other. Corpus picked at his thumbnail. His mom would fuss at him if she was here, but fortunately she was in jail on yet another prostitution charge. As she'd told Corpus time and time again, hiring high-class escorts was a familial weakness. "Where is everyone?" Prancy asked. "They made it seem like the whole school would be here," Jack added. "Not they," commented Corpus. "Just spleen." A grating voice bellowed across the cul-de-sac like a brontosaurus trumpeting across some primordial swamp. The friends turned toward the sound, seeing Spike and his cadre of ill-mannered preteens approaching them from down the street. Ernest Acombe, Susie Carpentier, and mean Miami Kim. They were dressed as name-brand television characters, their parents sparing no expense on their children's happiness, regardless of how rotten they were. Corpus took a brand-name chocolate bar out of his plastic jack-o'-lantern and gave the chocolate log a munch supreme. He wouldn't be afraid of Spike and his cronies tonight. This was the night he would become a man. "Where is everyone?" Corpus asked bravely. For it was known throughout the 5th grade one didn't just ask Spike questions.
"They were on time," Spike sneered. "They already did the dang thing. Every kid in the school. So that leaves you losers."
His sneer widened as he looked from Prancy to Jack and then to Corpus, on whom his most evil eyes lingered.
"Come on, don't tell me you're a cheap chicken spleen.
Corpus perched up on his tiptoes and glanced over Spike's broad shoulders, made strong by years of bullying, to rest his weary eyes on the house at the end of the street. Rugged hands treated Corpus to a mighty shove.
"Now's not the time for daydreaming, spleen,"
Spike howled. Corpus fell to the asphalt with a pathetic hard-earned candy spilling from his plastic jack-o'-lantern candy receptacle like precious blood from his childlike veins. Prancy and Jack glanced at one another, wanting to defend their comrade in age against this vile assault, but unwilling to risk their own skin to do it. "Cut it out, Spike," was all Prancy could muster.
"I'll only cut it out when you 3 do the maze,"
Spike said.
"Oh yeah?"
Jack asked, his ire boiling over.
"Did you do the maze?"
Spike's face settled into a foul grimace. A cheese knife appeared in his right hand in a flash. He took a step toward Jack, who leapt backwards.
"Course I did, spleen," he growled. "My cheese knife here can back me up. And now I'm gonna," Spike said, holding the cheese knife to Jack's tender cheek.
"Okay," Corpus proclaimed.
"We'll do it."
2 sheets hung from a rope that spanned the gap between trees, marking the Halloween maze's entrance. They billowed in the breeze like flayed human skin upon a satanic altar during a spooky hurricane. To Corpus, they appeared to be 2 banshees hell-bent on luring him into the darkest embrace of Stygian terror. He felt a reassuring hand on his shoulder, and then another. He looked left, and then right. His 2 friends were by his side. Maybe, just maybe, with their support, he could summon the courage to navigate this haunted maze that appeared to have been erected by a dead weirdo.
"Hurry up, spleens,"
Spike cawed from behind them. Corpus screwed up his face, set his nerves, and, with a deep breath worthy of a freediver looking for pearls, ducked into the maze. The entrance was so narrow, they had to go in single file. But, leader as he was, Corpus passed the threshold first. The cul-de-sac's ambient noise suddenly cut out, drowning Corpus in near utter silence, the flapping of the sheets the only proof he wasn't deaf as a crocodile. Ahead of him stretched a long hallway made of sheets tied to poles. They looked like ghosts in the dim light. Occasionally, one of the sheets would buffet, from either a breeze or something passing by on the other side. Corpus couldn't know. The Halloween sky was still there. Vermont, being a desolate wasteland, didn't suffer the same light pollution as normal states, and the October stars twinkled, the boredom of their eternal watch somewhat lessened by Corpus's current predicament. He felt a flapping behind him and turned, assuming it was his fellow chums entering the maze. There was no one there. "Guys?" he asked, trying to keep his voice level, not wanting that bastard Spike to know how afeared he truly was. There was no answer. Corpus walked back to the entrance and pulled the hanging sheets apart. He expected to see the cul-de-sac, but the cul-de-sac wasn't there. Instead, a long hallway of sheets greeted him, just like the one he'd left behind him. What? Corpus queried quietly. He stood there for a nonce, his childish mind processing what had happened to him. He had entered the white sheet maze with his friends behind him, following close like soldiers. He'd taken but a few steps. And now he was swathed in this maze of white sheets like the only human at a ghostly ball. The yard had disappeared, the town vanished. There was now only Corpus and this haunted maze, stretching in front of him like so many overstretched marshmallows. Corpus had no choice. He turned around and started walking. His heart beat around him like Spike beating up kids on the playground. Corpus tried to think. Maybe it's a trick, he thought as he strolled in delicious terror. Maybe something with mirrors? He'd been in a funhouse once at the Autumn Hills County Fair. He'd been lost in that mirror maze for hours. He turned back around to investigate. The entrance was now gone. In its place was just another hallway stretching the length of a football field or more. Corpus staggered backwards, shocked and dismayed by this turn of events. "It can't be," he whispered fearfully. A tiny voice squeaked from somewhere in the distance. Corpus spun around, almost dizzy now, and saw the shadow of a young lad vanish around a turn up ahead. "Hey!" Corpus squeaked, breaking into a trot that soon transformed into a run. "Hey, wait!" He rushed around the corner and fell into a hole sudden as it was deep. His hands grabbed the cold earth of the hole's edge at the last moment, arresting his fall. He glanced down where 20 feet below, the bottom of the shaft was coated in dead children dressed up for Halloween. 3 name-brand superheroes and a mummy. Their bodies were twisted horribly, the impact of the fall smashing their bones so thoroughly that they could almost be described as flesh piles. The most crimson of liquid, that being blood, had soaked into the hole's bottom like swamp water in a sanguine marsh. Corpus shrieked. He hauled himself upward, thanking his lucky stars that his dad had forced him into gymnastics classes since he could walk, and made it to the other side of the hole, his young chest heaving up and down like a runaway jackhammer. He crawled away from the terrible pit, crawled until his back bumped up against one of the sheet walls. The fabric was tight, but there was just enough give to allow him an underpeak. His cul-de-sac lay beyond the wall. He saw witches, ghosts, goblins, and more. Living name-brand superheroes trotting from house to house, filling buckets and sacks with candy under a hallowed crescent moon. He saw parents sneaking drinks from cans of wine, checking their watches, wanting to get home in time to catch a name-brand horror flick while their kids passed out in sugar comas. A gust of wind kicked up fall leaves and sent them swirling, carrying with it the sense of cinnamon, allspice, and ginger, as well as the burned tang of a coming cold front. The perfect Halloween. "Help!" Corpus shrieked. "Help me! I'm trapped in a madman's Halloween maze! There are dead kids in here, guys! Come on! Help!" No one heard the poor boy's plaintive wailing, or, if they did, merely thought it was another over-the-top Halloween decoration, like the 12-foot-tall skeleton at the Lynn's house. Corpus tried to squeeze under the sheet, but there wasn't enough give, no matter how he fitfully tried to claw his way through. He scratched the earth beneath the sheet, trying to tear a means of egress, but the cold earth was hard and unforgiving. Progress was slow, but there was progress. Corpus's face split in a deranged smile as a fingernail broke, mixing red water in with the earth he was hand-shoveling. Given enough time, he would be free. A moan from behind gave him pause. Corpus slowly turned, his eyes landing on the hole just in time to see a rotting hand crest its edge. Then another. A girl, dressed up as a name-brand superhero, clawed her way out of the hole, her Greek armor confusingly colored red, white, and blue reflecting in the moonlight. Wounds gaped across her exploded skin, her arms bent oddly, angles God had forbidden the human body to achieve. Corpus backed away as far as he could get as she stood on wobbly legs, bones mashing and cracking as she rose. Another pair of hands appeared on the hole's edge, then another, then another. "What?" Corpus asked. "What do you want? Begone, spirits, and trouble me no more." The girl moaned, her voice sounding almost reversed as she spoke, like she was wheezing air in. "Bones," she hissed. The other child zombies soon stood by her. "We want bones." They slowly shuffled toward him, moaning all the while. Corpus returned to his digging, his movements now frantic. He scooped with such ferocity that dirt erupted behind him, not unlike a soil geyser. But he could quickly tell that it wasn't enough. He'd never dig his way under the sheet before the dead darlings got to him. They were only feet away. If only he had a trowel. There was no time to fantasize about trowels. The zombies were close now, only a dozen yards away. Corpus jumped to his feet and, in a panic, hurled himself at the sheet wall, hoping to knock over the poles that held the sheets in place. But the walls held strong. The construction was impeccable. A dead hand graced his shoulder, and Corpus spun to the side, barely avoiding a bear hug from one of the undead. He ran as fast as he could, glancing over his shoulder to confirm the undead tots were in pursuit, when he tripped over something that twanged. He fell on his face and rolled over in just enough time to see something fall from the tree branches above him. A concrete block smashed into the ground right where his head had been. He stared at it, eyes wide, realizing that he was just a few inches away from death. A trap of some sort? What the H was a concrete block doing up there? Laughter boomed from up ahead. 3 shadows were watching him from the other side of a turn. Corpus staggered to his feet. "Who's there?" he called out. "Hey, wait!" He chased after the shadows, pausing only when he reached the turn. He carefully peered around the edge and spotted a thin wire that he would have tripped if he had just kept running. Another trap. He was this close to being another costumed child at the bottom of a death hole. He shook his head, stepped over it, and carried on. Corpus chased the unidentified children through dozens of hallways, past dozens of turns, avoiding traps all the while. So many that he began to wonder how this Halloween maze could possibly be this big, how it could just keep going on forever and ever. He felt like he must have run the whole width of Vermont and back. His feet hurt, his legs cramped, his lungs burned. He forced himself onward, never getting close enough to get a good look at the shadows, never getting within arm's reach. But he could hear them giggling, laughing, the incessant mocking chortles of little demon kids. It was maddening. "No! No!" Corpus screamed as he passed sheet after white sheet, screwing his eyes shut and banging his fists on his stupid head. "No, no, 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 no!" He should have never come into this bedeviled maze. He should have resolved himself to being a spleen forever. Who cared what Spike thought? He should have stayed with his friends, stayed trick-or-treating, stayed alive. But now he was doomed. Doomed to spend eternity with these accursed undead neighborhood children. A breeze ruffled Corpus's auburn locks. Something fresh wafted through the air. Cinnamon? Ginger? He opened his eyes and gasped. 2 sheets fluttered before him just like at the entrance. He could see something beyond. A field of some sort, maybe a backyard. Had he made it? Was he out of the Halloween maze? Yet again, Corpus heard giggles. Freedom? He asked himself. Or terror? It was a question that had plagued mankind for millennia, and Corpus, young as he was no closer to answering it than a rabbit would be. He took a breath, steeled his nerves, and walked through the sheets. Into a graveyard. More of those fluttering white sheets surrounded it, creating an open space about 300 yards across. Rotting, moldy headstones dotted the soil like unbridled dragon's teeth. A path ran through the middle, leading to an above-ground tomb. Corpus walked up to one of the gravestones. The name. He knew the name. Jumpin' Jack Estevez, 2014 to 2024. There, right next to it, Prancy Finkelbaum, 2014 to 2024. Corpus stumbled backwards, away from the graves, his eyes wide with indescribable terror and sadness. Frantically, he glanced at the other nearby graves. Jaundice O'Hara, Twisty Domingo, Lil Susie Chen. The names kept coming and they didn't stop. All kids, all from his school. They're dead, he whispered, terror dripping from his tongue like a serpent's venom. He turned around, intent on fleeing back into the maze, but the opening was gone. He was sealed in. The only way left to go was down the path, toward the tomb. Step by wretched step, he marched to that big stone corpse box, his eyes flitting from grave to grave. Seeing his dead schoolmates' names written on cold granite caused his stomach to turn, but he couldn't force himself to look away from the markers of their demise. The saddest of liquids, that being tears, dripped down his cheeks. Soon enough, he stood before the tomb. Torches on either side of the stone monument burst to life upon his arrival. He heard the sound of earth parting behind him, the moans of dozens of school-aged tots as they clawed their way free of the graveyard's embrace. They were rising. The lid of the tomb began to move with a deep, scraping sound. Corpus felt the urge to back away, an urge only restrained by the knowledge of the undead monstrosities behind him. He stood his ground. The lid fell off, and, stiff as a plank, like Nosferatu, Mr. Ghoulberg rose from his grave. He, too, was a zombie. His skin rotted away in some spots, exposing black muscle and ivory bone. What little hair he still had was matted with corpse goo. The malevolent being before Corpus raised his arms up in the air and cried, "Boo!" Corpus furrowed his brows. "Did you come back from the grave just to do one of your pranks?" Corpus asked in disbelief. Mr. Ghoulberg glanced around as if he were expecting a different reaction. "Of course," he said. Corpus just glared at him. Mr. Ghoulberg cleared his throat. "Do you know who threw the first torch?" Mr. Ghoulberg asked. Corpus was aghast with confusion. "What? No, I'm just a kid." Mr. Ghoulberg scratched his undead nose. "Oh," he said, disappointed. "Well, I figured maybe if I found out who did it, I could finally be at peace and go into the great beyond instead of being stuck here in Vermont. But I suppose the mystery of my demise will forever be just that, a mystery. My wretched soul will be stuck on this earth, scaring unsuspecting children until time has ground itself to dust and then blown away into eternal nothingness. Silence fell over the evil graveyard until Mr. Goulberg forced a jolly smile. "Oh, well, Happy Halloween!" he growled, his mouth dripping with solidified blood. He gestured a skeletal hand towards a parting in the walls behind him, where a bowl of candy sat on a wooden chair. A sign next to it read, "Exit." "And thanks for doing my Halloween maze." Corpus was flummoxed beyond belief. His mouth opened and closed on its own accord, like a fish gasping for water until his words finally came to him. "Fuck you, Mr. Goulberg. No one likes your stupid Halloween pranks." The boy walked to the exit and took some full-sized candy bars. Then he was gone, back out into the street, leaving Mr. Goulberg and the other zombies in the shadows impassively staring at him. There was a chime. Sheets rustled. A breeze blew through the graveyard. Cinnamon and ginger. Mr. Goulberg breathed the scent deep into his rotting lungs. Another kid had entered the maze. "I love Halloween," he said with a smile. Then he crawled into his tomb.
Oh, it always brings a tear to my eye. Did it not move you, young man? Has your world view not changed from this wonderful tale?
I don't understand. Mr. Goulberg came back from the dead to play Halloween pranks?
And to finally meet his killer. Could you not tell, young man? It's all there in the text.
I mean, I guess so.
You loved it, didn't you? Say it.
That voice. My God, it's the voice that mocks me in my dreams.
Tell me you loved my story.
No. No!
You're never getting away. You'll be stuck in my evil dungeon maze for all time. Reading story after story after story after story after story after story after story. This episode was performed by Andrew Shoemaker and Lord Serpent. It was edited by Stacey Milborn, Michael Morgan, and Lord Serpent. The Halloween Maze was written by Charles Brock and Lord Serpent. It was produced by Stacey Milborn, Michael Morgan, Charles Brock, and Lord Serpent. Michael Morgan and Lord Serpent were the audio engineers. The music was composed by Charles Brock and Lord Serpent. Tune in next Terra for even more tales of horrific weeks. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Lord Serpent's Library and check out my homepage at rss.com/podcasts/Lord Serpent's Library.